The boardroom was a battlefield, and I, Marcus Tate, was losing. My vision blurred as I gripped the edge of the polished mahogany table, the Seattle skyline mocking me through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Across from me, Javier Morales, my rival, my equal, my alpha counterpart, leaned back in his chair, his sharp hazel eyes slicing through my defenses like they always did. We were both alphas, or so I thought. For years, we'd clashed in the cutthroat world of tech startups, our companies vying for the same contracts, the same investors, the same throne. Marcus Tate, 28, black, driven, and relentless, built Tate Innovations from a dorm room dream into a multimillion-dollar empire. Javier, 29, Latino, charismatic, and infuriatingly brilliant, led Morales Tech with a charm that disarmed competitors and a ruthlessness that crushed them. The industry called us the Alpha Titans. But behind closed doors, our rivalry was personal, electric, a fire neither of us could extinguish. Today's meeting was supposed to be my triumph. I'd spent months perfecting a pitch for Horizon Ventures, a billion-dollar investment firm that could catapult my company past Javier's. But my body betrayed me. My pulse pounded in my temples, my chest tightened, and a strange, unfamiliar heat coiled in my core. I'd been feeling off for weeks. Fatigue, dizziness, a scent I couldn't place, but I dismissed it as stress. Alphas didn't break. Not me. Not ever. Marcus, you look like hell, Javier said, his voice low, almost concerned, but I caught the edge of amusement. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his tailored charcoal suit hugging his broad shoulders. You sure you're up for this? I forced a smirk, ignoring the sweat beading on my forehead. Worried I'll outshine you again, Morales? He chuckled, a sound that sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. Keep dreaming, Tate. The investors watched us, their faces a mix of curiosity and impatience. I opened my mouth to start the pitch, but the room spun. My knees buckled, and before I could catch myself, I collapsed, the world fading to black. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed, the sterile scent of antiseptic burning my nose. Machines beeped softly, and sunlight streamed through a window, casting long shadows across the room. My body felt wrong. Too light, too fragile, like I was no longer myself. I reached for the call button, but a hand stopped me. Warm, strong, familiar. Javier. He sat beside my bed, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by something softer, something that made my chest ache in a way I couldn't name. You're awake, he said, his voice rough, like he'd been there all night. His dark hair was mussed, his tie loosened, and his eyes held a storm I'd never seen before. What the hell happened? I croaked, my throat dry. He hesitated, his jaw tightening. You presented, Marcus. Late. Really late. Presented. I laughed, but it came out weak. I'm an alpha, Javier. You know that. His gaze didn't waver. Not anymore. The doctors ran tests. You're an omega. The word hit like a freight train. Omega. Impossible. Alphas didn't just become omegas. It was genetic, fixed, unchangeable. But the look in Javier's eyes told me he wasn't lying. I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced me back. My body felt foreign, sensitive, and that strange heat was back, stronger now, pooling in my gut. This is a mistake, I said, my voice shaking. I'm not. It's not a mistake. Javier cut in, his tone firm but gentle. Your symptoms, fatigue, dizziness, the heat, it's all textbook. You've been suppressing it for years, probably with blockers, but your body finally gave out. I stared at him, my mind reeling. Suppressants? I'd never taken anything like that. But the truth was undeniable. The heat, the scent, the way my body reacted to Javier's presence, it was all Omega. I was no longer the alpha I'd built my life around. I was something else, something the world saw as weaker, lesser. And Javier, my rival, my enemy, knew it. "Why are you here?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I meant. "To gloat." He flinched just barely, but I caught it. "No, Marcus. I'm here because," he trailed off, his hand tightening around mine. "Because I couldn't leave you alone." The air between us shifted, heavy with something unspoken. For years, our rivalry had been a dance. Push and pull, fire and ice. But now, with my defenses stripped away, I saw something in Javier's eyes I'd never noticed before. Hunger. Not for victory, but for me. The hospital room felt too small, too warm. My pulse raced, and that damn heat surged again, making my skin prickle. Javier's scent, cedar and spice, wrapped around me, intoxicating, overwhelming. I yanked my hand away, my heart pounding. "Get out," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. He didn't move. "I'm not going anywhere, Marcus. Not until we figure this out." Figure what out? My new reality? The fact that I was no longer his equal? Or the way his presence made my body betray me, craving something I didn't understand? I closed my eyes, trying to shut him out, but his scent lingered, pulling me under. The next few days were a blur of tests and consultations. The doctors confirmed it. I was an Omega, a rare late presentation triggered by years of stress and denial. They prescribed suppressants to manage the heats, but the damage was done. My identity, my company, my life, everything was in question. Tate Innovations relied on my image as an alpha, a leader, a force. An Omega CEO? The board would eat me alive. Javier visited every day, bringing coffee, books, even my favorite takeout from a hole-in-the-wall Ethiopian place in Capitol Hill. He didn't push, didn't gloat, just sat there. His presence a quiet anchor in the storm of my unraveling life. I hated how much I needed it. Hated how much I noticed the way his smile softened when he looked at me, or how his laugh made my chest ache. One night, as rain lashed the hospital windows, he stayed late, sprawled in the chair beside my bed. "You're going to get through this," he said, his voice low, certain. I scoffed, staring at the ceiling. "Easy for you to say. You're still an alpha." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his gaze piercing. "You think this changes who you are? You're still Marcus Tate. Still the guy who built an empire from nothing. Still the guy who makes me question everything I thought I knew about myself." My breath caught. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't answer, just held my gaze. His eyes dark with something I was too afraid to name. The heat in my core flared, and I turned away, my heart racing. This was dangerous. He was dangerous. But the truth was, I didn't want him to leave. When I was discharged, Javier drove me home to my loft in Belltown. The city buzzed outside, alive with possibility, but inside, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. He lingered in my doorway, his silhouette framed by the city lights. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice soft but steady. I wanted to push him away, to rebuild the walls between us. But as I stood there, drowning in his scent, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to. The loft felt too quiet, too empty, despite the hum of Seattle outside my windows. I stood in the kitchen, staring at a bottle of suppressants on the counter. their label a stark reminder of my new reality. Omega. The word still tasted like defeat. Javier had left an hour ago, but his scent lingered, cedar and spice, clinging to the air like a ghost. I hated how it grounded me, how it made my pulse quicken. I was Marcus Tate, damn it. I didn't need anyone, least of all him. But the memory of his hand on mine in the hospital, the way his voice softened when he said my name, it was unraveling me. The next morning, I dragged myself to the office, determined to reclaim control. Tate Innovations headquarters, a sleek glass tower in South Lake Union, was my kingdom. But as I stepped off the elevator, whispers followed me. My team, loyal but human, couldn't hide their curiosity. The news had spread Marcus Tate, the Alpha Titan, was an Omega. I could feel their doubt, their judgment, like knives in my back. The board meeting was worse. The room was a sea of tailored suits and skeptical faces, their eyes dissecting me. "Marcus," said Ellen Chun, the board chair, her tone clipped, "we need to discuss your condition. Investors are concerned about stability." Stability? I leaned forward, my voice steady despite the heat coiling in my gut. "My condition doesn't change the fact that I've doubled our revenue in 2 years. Horizon Ventures is still on the table." Ellen's lips thinned. Horizon's hesitant. They want an alpha at the helm. I clenched my fists under the table, my nails biting into my palms. They want results, and I deliver. The meeting dragged on, a barrage of questions about my health, my leadership, my legitimacy. By the time it ended, I was exhausted, the heat in my body flaring again, sharper this time. I stumbled into my office, locking the door behind me, and sank into my chair, my breath ragged. A knock startled me. "Marcus," Javier's voice, muffled but unmistakable. "You in there?" I didn't answer, but he opened the door anyway, his presence filling the room. He wore a dark green sweater that hugged his frame, his hair slightly damp from the rain outside. "Heard about the board meeting," he said, closing the door behind him. "You okay? Why do you care?" I snapped, but my voice cracked, betraying me. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of my desk. "Because I know what it's like to have the world question who you are. And because," he hesitated, his jaw tightening, "because I can't stop caring about you." The air stilled. My heart pounded, the heat in my core surging, pulling me toward him. I stood, my hands shaking, and stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. "You don't get to say that," I said, my voice low. "Not after years of trying to destroy me." "Destroy you?" He laughed, but it was bitter, raw. "Marcus, you've been my obsession, not my enemy. Every move I made was to get closer to you, to prove I could match you. And now," his eyes darkened, his voice dropping, "now I see you, really see you, and I can't look away." My breath hitched. The heat was unbearable now, a wildfire spreading through me, and his scent was everywhere, drowning my senses. I wanted to hate him, to push him away, but my body had other ideas. I stepped closer, our chests almost touching, and his hand brushed my arm, sending a jolt through me. "Javier," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What are we doing?" "I don't know," he admitted, his hand lingering. "But I'm not running from it." "Are you?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed, shattering the moment. It was Ellen. Horizon Ventures had pulled out, citing leadership uncertainties. My stomach dropped. Everything I'd built was slipping through my fingers, and Javier was standing here, offering something I didn't know how to take. "I need to fix this," I said, stepping back, my voice cold. Alone. He didn't argue, but the hurt in his eyes cut deeper than I expected. He left without a word, and I spent the rest of the day burying myself in work, trying to salvage the Horizon deal. But the heat kept coming, relentless, and Javier's words echoed in my mind. Obsession. Was that what this was? Or was it something more? That night, I found myself at a bar in Pioneer Square, drowning my thoughts in whiskey. The place was crowded, the air thick with laughter and music, but I felt alone, until he walked in. Javier, as if drawn by some cosmic pull, his eyes finding mine across the room. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just made his way to me, his presence cutting through the noise. "You're a hard man to avoid," he said, sliding onto the stool beside me. "Maybe you're not trying hard enough," I shot back, but there was no heat in it. He ordered a drink, his shoulder brushing mine, and we sat in silence for a moment, the tension between us alive, electric. "You don't have to fight this alone," he said finally, his voice soft. "The board, the investors, the Omega thing, let me help." "Why?" I asked, turning to face him. "What's in it for you?" He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "You, Marcus. It's always been you." The heat surged, and before I could stop myself, I grabbed his collar, pulling him into a kiss. It was desperate, hungry, years of rivalry and unspoken longing pouring out. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and for a moment, the world disappeared. There was only him, only us. But reality crashed back. I pulled away, my heart racing, my mind a mess. "This doesn't change anything," I said, my voice shaking. He smiled, soft and sad. "It changes everything." The kiss lingered like a bruise, tender and raw, as I stumbled back to my loft that night. Javier's taste, whiskey and want, clung to me, and I hated how much I craved it. I was Marcus Tate, not some Omega chasing feelings I couldn't afford. But the heat in my body, the pull toward him, was undeniable, a traitor in my own skin. The next morning, I woke to a text from Javier. "We need to talk. Meet me at Pike Place, 10 a.m. I almost ignored it, but the memory of his hands, his voice, dragged me out of bed. I found him by the market's iconic fish-throwing stall, the air thick with the scent of salt and coffee. He stood out in the crowd, his dark jacket hugging his frame, his eyes scanning until they landed on me. "You look like you didn't sleep," he said, handing me a coffee. "Neither do you," I shot back, noticing the shadows under his eyes. "What's this about?" He led me to a quiet corner overlooking the Puget Sound, the water glinting under the gray sky. "I'm pulling Morales Tech from the Horizon deal," he said, his voice steady. "I'm endorsing you instead." I stared at him, the coffee burning my hand. "Why the hell would you do that?" "Because you need this win," he said, his gaze unwavering. "And because I believe in you, Marcus. Always have." The words hit harder than they should have. For years, I'd seen Javier as my rival, my mirror, the one person who could match me blow for blow. But now, standing here, offering to sacrifice his own shot for mine, he was something else entirely. I wanted to trust him, but trust was a luxury I'd never learned. "I don't need your pity," I said, my voice sharp. "It's not pity," he snapped, stepping closer. "It's respect, and maybe something more." The heat flared again, and I hated how my body responded, how his scent made my head spin. "You're complicating things," I said, turning away, my eyes on the water. I can't do this, whatever this is. Then don't, he said, his voice softer now. But I'm not going anywhere. The rest of the day was a blur of meetings and strategy sessions, but Javier's offer hung over me. By evening, I was back in my office, staring at a revised pitch for Horizon. I'd reworked it, incorporating data from Javier's team, data he'd sent me without me asking. It was a move only he could make, generous and calculated, and it made my chest ache. I called him. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice low, the city lights sprawling beyond my window. "Because I see you, Marcus," he said, his voice crackling through the phone. "Not just the alpha you were, but the man you are. And I'm not letting you fall." We met again that night, on the rooftop of my building, the rain soft and steady. The city glowed below, a mosaic of light and shadow. Javier stood close, his breath visible in the cool air, and I felt it again. That pull, that heat, that impossible connection. "I'm scared," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I don't know who I am anymore." He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. "You're still you. Omega or not, you're still the man who built an empire, who challenges me, who makes me want to be better." I turned to him, our faces inches apart, the rain clinging to his lashes. "And what if I can't handle this? What if I can't handle us?" "Then we figure it out together," he said, his voice steady, certain. "I'm not asking you to be anything you're not. I'm just asking you to let me in." I kissed him again, slower this time, deliberate. His hands found my waist, pulling me close, and for the first time I didn't fight the heat. I let it consume me, let it bind us, Alpha and Omega, rivals and something more. But the world wasn't done with us. The next day, a leaked article hit the tech blogs. Tate Innovation's CEO revealed as Omega, future in question. The board called an emergency meeting, and the investors were circling like vultures. Javier's endorsement had bought me time, but not enough. I needed to prove I was still a leader, still worthy. I walked into the boardroom, Javier at my side, his presence a quiet strength. "I'm not stepping down," I said, my voice cutting through the murmurs. "I'm an Omega, yes, but I'm still Marcus Tate, and I'm still the best damn CEO you'll ever have." The room fell silent. Ellen's eyes narrowed, but I saw a flicker of respect. Javier's hand brushed mine under the table, a silent promise. We were in this together, and for the first time I believed we could win. The boardroom victory was fleeting. By morning, social media was ablaze, the leaked article fueling speculation about my leadership. Hashtags like Omega CEO and Tate Collapse trended, each post a dagger to my pride. I stood in my office, staring at the city below, the weight of it all pressing down. Javier's endorsement had kept Horizon in play, but the investors wanted blood mine. Javier found me there, his presence a quiet storm. "You're trending," he said, holding up his phone, a wry smile on his lips. "Not exactly the kind of fame you wanted, huh?" I didn't laugh. "They're tearing me apart, Javier. Everything I've built. It's slipping away." He stepped closer, his hand resting on my shoulder, warm and steady. "Then we fight back. Together." His words were a lifeline, but doubt gnawed at me. Could I trust him? Could I trust myself, this new version of me that felt so raw, so exposed? The heat in my body was constant now, a reminder of my Omega nature, and Javier's scent, cedar and spice, made it worse, pulling me toward him even as I tried to hold my ground. We spent the day strategizing, crafting a public response to the leak. Javier's team worked with mine, a surreal alliance after years of rivalry. He was relentless, his mind as sharp as ever. But there was a softness in him now, a care that disarmed me. When he brushed my hand, or when his eyes lingered too long, I felt it. The bond growing between us, Alpha and Omega, undeniable. That night, we ended up at his place. A sleek condo in Queen and with views of the Space Needle. Papers and laptops littered his dining table, our joint pitch for Horizon nearly complete. But the tension between us was thicker than ever, a current running beneath every glance, every touch. "You're staring," I said, catching his eyes over the rim of my coffee mug. He didn't look away. "Can't help it. You're different now. Not less. Just more." My chest tightened. "More what? Vulnerable? Weak? Real," he said, his voice low. "You're not hiding anymore. And it's beautiful." I wanted to argue, to push him away, but the heat surged, and before I knew it, I was in his arms, our lips crashing together. This kiss was different. Fierce, desperate, acclaiming. His hands roamed my back, pulling me closer, and I let myself fall, let myself feel. For the first time, I didn't fight the Omega in me. I let it be, let it want, let it love. But love was a dangerous word, and by morning, reality hit again. The board called, demanding a vote on my position. The investors were split, and Horizon was wavering. Javier and I presented our joint pitch, a bold vision merging our company's strengths. But the room was cold, skeptical. "You're asking us to bet on an Omega," one investor said, his voice dripping with disdain. I stood, my voice steady despite the heat burning through me. "You're betting on me, on my track record, on my vision. Omega or not, I'm the one who gets results." Javier stood beside me, his presence a silent vow. "And you're betting on us," he added. "Tate and Morales together. Unstoppable." The room shifted, murmurs of intrigue replacing doubt. We left the meeting with a tentative green light, but the fight wasn't over. That night, as we stood on my rooftop, the rain falling soft around us, I turned to Javier, my heart raw. "I don't know if I can do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "The world doesn't want an Omega leading." He took my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "Then we change the world, Marcus. You and me." I looked at him, his eyes fierce with belief, and for the first time I saw a future. Not just for my company, but for us. The heat in my body wasn't just Omega instinct. It was him, pulling me towards something bigger, something true. The final pitch to Horizon Ventures was make or break. The conference room, high above Seattle's skyline, buzzed with tension. Javier and I stood side by side, our presentation seamless, a testament to weeks of late nights and shared dreams. My Omega heat was under control, thanks to the suppressants, but Javier's presence still sparked something in me, a fire that fueled my resolve. The investors listened, their faces unreadable. When we finished, Ellen stood, her expression softer than I'd ever seen. "You've made a compelling case," she said. "We'll vote tomorrow." That night, Javier and I walked through Volunteer Park, the air crisp, the stars bright above. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said, his hand finding mine. "We did this together." I stopped, turning to face him. "Why me, Javier? You could have anyone. Why an Omega who's still figuring himself out?" He smiled, his eyes warm, unguarded. "Because you're Marcus Tate. Because you challenge me, push me, make me feel alive. Because I love you." The words stole my breath. Love. I'd spent years building walls, hiding behind my alpha facade. But Javier saw through it all. I stepped closer, my forehead resting against his, the rain starting to fall. "I love you too," I whispered, the words freeing something in me I didn't know was caged. The next day, Horizon voted in our favor. Tate Innovations and Morales Tech would merge, a new powerhouse born from our rivalry, our partnership, our love. The board backed me as CEO, Omega and all, a statement to the world that strength wasn't defined by biology. Months later, we stood on the rooftop again, the city alive below us. Javier's arm was around me, his scent grounding me, his love anchoring me. I was still Marcus Tate, still a leader, still a fighter. But now I was something more, an Omega claimed not by weakness, but by love, by choice, by a man who saw me as his equal. The world would keep challenging us, but together we were unstoppable. And as the rain fell, carving our story into the city's heart, I knew we'd rewrite the rules, not just for us, but for everyone who dared to love beyond labels.